little bit here, but it's good to see everyone here. We are recording. Welcome to our Block Chat Live. And just want to say thank you to everyone that is signed up. And what a great week. It's it's a typical fall day in the city of Buffalo, and we are enjoying it. So we're just going to kind of hang out for a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead and start. We have a great lineup. We have some old familiar faces. Our focus is going to be talking about policing and community policing and a couple of other different initiatives that we're going to be talking about today. But it's good to see everyone. I see a couple of people joining, some good block club people here, on here. So it's just good to see everybody here. So we're just going to give us a second and then we're going to go ahead and start. Okay. Not trying to call anybody out, but I see Angie over there. You're doing some big things, Angie. I'm reading about you.
Hi, everybody. How are you? And thank you.
Yeah, doing some very good things,
I appreciate
so
that. I really
mhm,
do. I appreciate the mention. We all do over in
good.
Norfolk.
Well, that's good. That's
Thank
good.
you.
And so, why don't we go ahead and start? Because I'm in transit, and we are, but we have some good speakers here. I know we have a lot lining up. My name is Oswaldo Mestre. I'm Senior Advisor to the Mayor, Executive Director of Citizen Services for the City of Buffalo. It's just good to see and hear everybody on our Friday. It's misty out here, but it's a typical fall day in the City of Buffalo. And it this speaks to what and who we are and what we're doing. When I say typical Friday, a lot of great things that are happening here within the city of Buffalo, but a lot of things that I think we are in prepared mode. And I'm going to say that, because I had the opportunity, along with Debbie Lombardo, who's the president of the Board of Block Clubs, be part of a task force that the mayor put together, a task force on preparation and really just kind of this making sure that people are better equipped and prepared for the winter that's coming up. We all know last winter, a couple of different times, we had catastrophic weather. And when I say catastrophic, should be noted that normally Buffalo deals with snow, and we handle that and we try to do that. But when something catastrophic is happening, is that it takes some extraordinary opportunities for connections and partnerships. And what we try to do is learn from those. And we had a task force, NYU, the mayor commissioned a study from a university to come in and evaluate many of the things that we did. And we came up with some different recommendations. And in fact, there are going to be more recommendations. And you're going to be hearing that from us. But the area that I was kind of in charge is to help equip people to be prepared. We're going to be doing a series of virtual workshops, and we're going to pass that out. Everybody's going to get a QR code. There's going to be a how-to if you're stuck in your house, in your car, a couple of other things, mental health. And then we're also going to let you know that the Common Council of the City of Buffalo is doing some things as well, and they're doing workshops too. I don't think you can have enough, and so ours is going to be virtual. And we're going to pass that along to some folks so that they can have it on their phone and they can be connected with it as well too. So listen, I'm going to pass it off to Nicole. We're going to talk a little more about those recommendations and a couple of other different things. Nicole?
Thank you, Oz. So I'm going to quickly share my screen, just give you guys a few announcements, tell you a little bit more about our preparedness workshop, and just let me know when you guys can see my screen.
We can see it.
Okay. It's not. Perfect. Okay. So, as always, just a reminder, the mayor is putting out pretty important information. So please catch his radio show, Talk of the Town, on Sundays at 1 p.m. You can catch it on Facebook, on his Facebook, or on WFO. We are also doing here in the Division of Citizen Services a Health and Wellness Fall Festival Power Pop-Up event. This is next Wednesday from 3 to 6 p.m. in Schiller Park. So there are going to be a lot of community health and wellness partners. You can receive health and human service referrals and information. It is child friendly. There will be free food, music, children's activities, and a produce giveaway. So you can use that QR code just to see the complete list of the participating partners and sponsors. As well as Oswaldo mentioned, there will be a winter preparedness series sponsored by the Common Council. We will be there as well. These are at 5 locations throughout the city of Buffalo. You should register because supplies are limited, and they will have different information handed out there as well. As an ad, the Division of Citizen Services is doing a winter preparedness workshop. So that's going to be live online. And again, as Oswaldo mentioned, you will be getting information that you can continue to review different things, as well as there will be some things that are given away if you attend that workshop as well. So that flyer will be coming out today, and I will email it to everyone that is on this call, and you guys please feel free to share. As always, we are looking for AmeriCorps Vistas, so please join our team. You can send your information out to Ms. Malika Lee. Her email is on the flyer, and the eligibility and benefits are listed here. So please get in contact with her if you know someone or you yourself would like to be an AmeriCorps Vista. We are also looking for volunteers to join our Good Neighbors Network. So there are different volunteer initiatives that will be happening at different times of the year. So if you want to learn more about this initiative and to register as a volunteer, please scan this QR code listed on the screen, or you can contact Michael Smith, who is the Save Our Streets Task Force Coordinator. Board of Block Clubs has an email, Instagram, and a phone. If you are looking to start a block club or you want to strengthen your block club, you can contact them at any of those different ways. Again, email, phone, and Facebook and Instagram, actually. And they're very responsive on all platforms. They're also having a community appreciation dinner next Thursday, the 26th at 5 p.m. It will start on time. And if you are interested in attending, please RSVP by today to confirm your attendance. And you can RSVP by their email, bobcbuffalo@gmail.com. I believe it is listed in the chat, or by phone, and you can leave a message.
Nicole, we
Nicole,
can't hear you.
Nicole. Hi, Linda. I can't hear her either.
Hi, Oswaldo. Yeah, I can hear you too. Okay. All right. Well,
Thank you. Hey, Mike.
Hey, I was
Mike.
about to go and check on her to see if everything's working. I'll be right back.
okay, thanks.
For prevention, so it's very important. Wellness vendors include just some of the ones listed here, but there will be more in attendance. They have a full schedule from 8 to 12. And please, if you can, check this out or register and share this with others who this might be needed. There's also vendors that are going to be at the event, and if you do attend, your name will be entered into a raffle to win a pair of tickets for a Buffalo Sabres game. And or a Buffalo Bills game. Free Spanish classes are being offered, conversational Spanish. These are being offered through the BPS Parent Center. Did start Wednesday, October 11th, and they'll run twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Again, the Dare to Repair Cafe. So fix it, don't ditch it. You can register for these at thetoolllibrary.org. Dare to Repair. Their next one is Saturday, October 21st, and they have 3 more afterwards. So they're pop-up community events where you can bring your broken items and have a team of volunteer fixers repair them for free. So again, if you want to attend, just scan the QR code to register or go online and register at the Tool Library. And then there is the return of Shrek, free food, free fun, and free scares. This is Saturday, October 21st as well, Northwest Buffalo Community Center. There's gift basket raffles, 50-50 raffles, food and candy. They will be provided to those who come in their costume, and it starts at 5, and there's a haunted maze at 6. So donations are also appreciated for those who want to attend this event. And to close, and always just follow us on social media. We will be posting a lot of these flyers on there. We are at the Division of Citizen Services on Facebook. You can find us at Buffalo Citizen Services, on Instagram at Buffalo 311. You can also follow our 311 call and response center for more 311 related issues at Buffalo 311. And then, of course, as always, please follow Mayor Byron Brown on Facebook at Mayor Byron Brown, and on his Instagram at Mayor Byron Brown 716. And now I'm going to turn it back over to you, Oz.
Nicole, thank you. What a lot of great information. A lot of events that are happening. We all know we are in our fall season, and didn't mention about some of the different holidays that are coming up. More specifically, Halloween. If that's a holiday, right? But it's an event, especially for kids. We want people to be safe. Buffalo Police, the mayor's office, we're putting a lot of safety tips that are out to individuals, and again, we just want people to be safe, the young kids to be safe during that time. So again, one of our speakers, or the speaker that we have here today, is not somebody that is unfamiliar to our block chat. Very familiar. Many of you know him because of the work that he has done in the community and what he brings, that extra special to the work that we have that's in front of us. And so without further ado, when we talk about policing and the type of policing that we want to model, obviously Buffalo Police has been doing that, and has been making sure that we're improving in terms of community policing, but focus-oriented policing on residents in the community. But there's a whole host of different things. As you know, where Buffalo Police has different police districts and precincts, not precincts, but different districts. So we're happy to have Chief Champion, Captain in rank, the Chief Champion, to speak to us a little more about the happenings in his district, but also overall what's happening with Buffalo Police. Hey, Chief.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Can you guys see us?
Yes.
All right, we had to go low tech, unfortunately, because we were having all sorts of issues with our system that we have here at the district. But it's good to have you guys, good to see you guys again. I know it's been a while. Obviously, I've had to make the transition from being the captain of community policing and outreach into being a chief. And obviously, you know, I don't get to get out in the community as much as I want to, but we're still out there. We still very much have great pride in working for our community members. So it's good to see everybody again. Today we want to go over some different things. I'm actually going to move over. I have a PowerPoint that I prepared. It's a short one, but I'm also here with our community police officer, Manny Montez. So I know you guys know me as well. I'm working out of B District now as the chief of B District, which is our entertainment district. We're going to talk a little bit about what a district is, what types of things go on at districts, and how community members and citizens can reach out to their districts and what sort of services we offer as a district, particularly in comparison to some of the other districts and some of the things that we do that are unique to our particular district. But before I get into that, I know Lieutenant McAllister is going to be joining us as well, as he is the Lieutenant of Community Outreach and Engagement. He is the person who took my former position, and so now he's transitioning into that job, and he's doing a great job so far. And I've also brought on our CPO extraordinaire, Mr. Manny Montez. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey, how's everybody going? This is CPO Montez, Bravo District, for 5 years. So yeah, I work right below Chief. Anything he needs done in the community, as far as like anything with residential businesses, community engagement, directed patrols, community outreach with the businesses. I kind of fall in the lines of all that. So any issues that falls in the cracks of those, that's what I'm here for. So how you guys doing?
Good. So I couldn't get the PowerPoint up. It's still frozen. As you can see, our screen back there is completely frozen. But I guess I'll start here. And I think number one thing is just having an understanding of, you know, what a district is. You know, a district is it's a set precincts. Back in the day, we called them precincts, and there were more of them. And now there's actual districts, and there's less of them. but they cover greater spans of the entire city of Buffalo. So that particular district is responsible for that particular area in the city of Buffalo. And you generally have a whole entire platoon of officers who work in that particular district, and they're responsible for providing the safety and the policing of that particular area. Our particular district is very unique. We're called B District, and we are the entertainment district in the city of Buffalo. So B District is a tough district in some ways. I think in some ways that are very unique. Each district has its own personality, and B District is essentially the hub. It's where we have all of our entertainment going on. We've got all the concerts, all the large events. We've got all the festivals. We've got a ton of parks, a ton of schools. We've got grade schools, we've got colleges, we've got high schools, we've got large parks, which get a lot of large events, all the major festivals, all the major concerts, and all the laser sports events that we have regularly. Almost every single day, there's something going on in B District that calls for thousands of people to come downtown who normally probably wouldn't be downtown. So that's something that your average district doesn't have to grapple with, and we grapple with that every single day. And obviously, there's safety concerns that come along with that. I think another thing that's very unique to B District is the fact that we've got all of our government facilities here. You know, you can think about it from both federal government, from local government, every aspect of government. Generally, most of the buildings are down here in B District. I think another thing is all the services that we have, the outreach services that we have for people, whether they be 501c3 organizations or adult protective services, all the social services, all those things are in B District. So we get a lot of traffic from folks who need those services, and that provides, so those are good things, and also has some complications as a result that law enforcement has to be aware of. Ben, you got anything on that?
No, you covered everything.
so, so the thing about B District is, so our officers are still responsible for covering the same calls that your average district would. So that would mean just the 911 calls, any priority calls that come out. It could be low priority to high priority, and that alone is enough to keep police officers busy from start to finish, from start to the end of their shifts. But now add into that ripple of also being responsible for all the events that are happening and thousands of people downtown here for tourism. You think about Canal Side. Somewhere like Canal Side literally attracts thousands of people at that one location every single day. What other place has that? So now you add into it parks, and you add into it Sabres games, and you add into it concerts and plays. Like, I don't know about you guys, when I go to a Bills game, I'm just like, oh man, let's go Buffalo, let's go, right? But you're not thinking about how many officers and how much logistics goes into making sure that that particular event is safe. Think about it. We've got to know where the entrances and exits are. We've got to know how many people are going to be there. We've got to make sure we have traffic blocked. Those are all things that we have to go over before that event happens. And we have to make sure we're there for the beginning of it, make sure we're there for the middle portion of it to make sure that safety and security is there, and also for the out. We call it the out. And that's when people exit that particular event and they make their way home so we can ensure their safety as they get home. As you're driving, you don't see that traffic's been diverted by these police cars that are there. And it takes a big amount of officers to generally do that in a way that's efficient. And we handle that all in-house for the most part with our district officers, the same officers who are answering calls throughout the day. We've also got entertainment areas such as Chippewa and Allen Street and Elmwood on top of that. So those things require details. And what we call details are essentially a group of officers who are designated for that particular purpose at that time period. So if officers are working Chippewa, their sole purpose at that time period is the safety and security of Chippewa Street. Because again, this is a public safety thing. You've got thousands of people there on Chippewa throughout those hours that they're there. So they've got to look out for that, because any type of threat that happens there has the chance of becoming a mass casualty event every single time we're out there. And so we have to literally be on the lookout for anything that's I guess a danger to the public during that time period, while also policing whatever is happening in the crowds. And again, that's a large task that I don't think your average person thinks about.
Yeah. That's something me and the chief, we usually do. A lot of businesses, when they have like certain issues or complaints, we go to meetings every month to like maybe 4 to 5 different businesses along the entertainment district, and even as far as like even with the smaller businesses like the corner stores and stuff like that. So we're really involved with multiple businesses like and meetings and license inspections and permits, even through like housing court. We do a lot of that. So there's constant meetings every day, and we try to make an impact that way as well. So just to try to go over some safety and procedures and SEPTED with all these businesses, especially if the ones that are constantly being victim to break-ins and stuff like that. We even sit down with, like we just had a meeting with security over at Explorer More because we had an individual who was targeting businesses in that general area, which he ended up being arrested for 4 different locations. But we go over the SEPTED program with each of these locations. So we are trying our best each and every day. So
Absolutely. And a big part of security is making sure we keep relationships and dialogue with community members. So I'm sure you probably can't see this because of the glare. And obviously, again, we apologize because our system has not been cooperating with us today. The camera's not even working, so we couldn't sync it to be able to share the screen, unfortunately. But essentially, what does a police officer do? So police officers have personal responsibility for the enforcement and laws and ordinances and for the protection of life and property within the city of Buffalo. So that means our work activities as police officers consist primarily of patrol tasks, conducting investigation of criminal offenses, and the apprehension of criminals. We receive general supervision. However, the duties of a police officer involve an element of personal danger. It requires the exercise of considerable judgment in detecting and preventing crime, arresting offenders, and preserving the peace. Work is performed in accordance with established police practices and departmental rules and regulations. So the job of a police officer is complex. It's not something that's an easy thing. I've heard people talk about policing as if it's a simple thing. It's not. It's very complicated. It's something where, there's no shortage of things that we cover with policing. I would argue, and obviously, obviously I know the guys in citizen services might argue against this, but I think out of all the services, if you think of it governmentally, I don't know if there's a department that offers the gamut of services that policing has to offer, and to do so 24 hours a day, and to have literally service that goes to your door when you call and is available 24 hours a day, no matter what. I don't think a lot of people think of policing in that way, but if you really think about it in that way, it's a pretty big lift, and that's what we're tasked with. So the police officers, when they work, they have a big, big task that they have to fulfill.
Captain Champion, I'll make sure I'll give you that today. Because you guys do a lot out there, Cap.
You're gonna let me have that one today, Oz?
Yeah, no, you do a lot. But let me also add too, because I think you're right. But you also have a very diverse district and a large wide district from one end to the city to the others. Some of the districts you cut across Main Street, you have, I also see Officer Montez, he's often at the Bell Center. I see him at JFK. I see him at other places too, and going to block clubs too. So besides business, you kind of really, and then you have downtown. People are now starting to town as well, right? So
Right.
there's a lot going on in your district.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the guys they wear a ton of hats. They have to be able to make the transition from, in one call, maybe mentoring a youth, and in the next call, you're chasing a guy with a gun. So imagine just internally the things that have to go on within you to be able to make that adjustment within seconds, to be able to regulate yourself emotionally and physically, to be able to go from talking to a youth, maybe a kid, and then all of a sudden you're chasing someone who might have something that could kill you or kill someone else. And I think that's the part about policing that I don't think a lot of people acknowledge, unfortunately. And it's something that I think when you really think of it in those terms, it's like, man, you got to be in awe of the guy's ability to be able to do that. B District and why it's unique, I know I covered some of these things, but B District is the downtown entertainment district. We hold the most shopping centers and businesses and government buildings. We host the most mass gathered large events and sporting events, concerts, and festivals. We have the largest public parks, aside from D District, multiple highly visited tourist sites and locations, several schools, high schools, and colleges, service providers such as social services, City Mission, Friends of the Night People, Veteran One Stop, Evergreen, and BFNC. And B District is also one of the most diverse areas of Buffalo. When I say diverse, I don't just mean someone's race or ethnicity. I also mean socioeconomically. Like we've got so many different social levels. We've got everything from millionaires and sports athletes down here to everything, some people who are really under some pretty tough financial situations. So the officers have to know how to relate to every single part of society and to be able to transition to do so seamlessly. So this is you guys can't see very well, but this is a picture of our officers on the Chippewa detail. So as I was saying, we have a detail that's specifically catered towards Chippewa. We have officers working the Chippewa detail every single weekend on Fridays and Saturdays to be able to deal with the thousands of people who come down there to patronize the restaurants and bars that are down there at that location, as well as Allen Street. So it's a big task. You obviously you typically have, less officers obviously than people down there. So if you think about it from the standpoint of policing, you're already very much outnumbered if something were to happen. If there was ever something that happened like a mass issue, those few police officers are working their best to try to address every single need and calling for backup from the cars that are actually working the streets in that situation. So working big crowds like that is absolutely a challenging situation. And now you add into it that some of the people might be a little inebriated. They might be, they might have had a couple of drinks, right? And we're not always at our most rational when we've had a couple of drinks. And that's what those officers are dealing with every single weekend. So who supervises Buffalo Police Patrol in a district station house? So lieutenants. Lieutenants are the first line supervisors. I know not everyone is completely familiar with every single one of the ranks that we have within a police district, but the first line supervisor, the person who manages essentially the patrol officers who are working, is your patrol lieutenant. In some other departments, they have a patrol sergeant. We don't have that. We have patrol lieutenants. And they're the ones who manage all the officers. They tell them where to go. They give them the special assignments. They ensure that the goals of myself and the department are met by the officers during that particular shift. If there were any issues, they would be the person who takes care of those particular issues. If there were any personnel issues that pop up, or if there are any management issues that pop up, any scheduling issues that pop up, they would be the person addressing that first and foremost. Captains. Captains are the next title. I had the title of captain just recently, and captains essentially they supervise patrol officers, district detectives, detective sergeants, lieutenants, and any equipment and station maintenance needs. They can also function as a designated duty officer overseeing police functions during a shift. So captains have a pretty important position. Captains are also the people who overlook and oversee essentially the mission of the department and make sure that the lieutenants are doing their jobs in supervising and managing the officers to ensure that those goals and that mission is being met. So the captains also oversee police operations, and at times they're designated as what we call a duty officer. And a duty officer is the person who's working during the shift to ensure that all of the police officers throughout every district are doing what they need to do, getting the right people called in, making sure the right procedures are being followed throughout the entire city of Buffalo during a working shift. So that's called a duty officer. Generally, it's one of the most senior captains that are working at that time period. So if you're a senior captain working in one of the districts, you'll probably not only be working as the captain of your district during that shift, but you'll also be managing the entire department as duty officer. Lastly, we have chief, and a chief oversees all operations and functions in the local police district. So inevitably, the chief is the person who's ultimately responsible and ultimately overseeing everything throughout that district. So in my district, I take a bit more of a hands-on approach than I think some chiefs do, just because that's just the way I roll. But I like to be there. I like to see what's going on. I like to help my guys out. I like to be out in the community. But you also have to oversee, all of our operations, make sure any details are met, make sure that we have our calendars set, make sure we've got the correct manpower, and any administrative needs are met as well. So who investigates reports written by patrol officers? Manny, what's the answer to this?
Detectives.
That's right. That's right. So detectives. A lot of people don't know that for some reason. I know some people have an idea of what detectives do. They just think that they come in and investigate, but that's not something that's generated on their own. That's usually something that's done as a result of that report that was taken by the patrol officers who responded to that particular 911 call. So the detectives come in after the fact. They do the follow-up investigations, or we call it the secondary investigation at times. The initial investigation is done by patrol officers. So patrol officers perform an initial investigation upon response to 911 calls. When appropriate, patrol officers determine via their investigation when a report is necessary to document the incident, or allows secondary or follow-up investigation, which is done by detectives, when it's beyond a basic or low-level offense. Detectives receive reports completed throughout the entire district and are tasked with reviewing them for solvability, making follow-up phone calls, investigating, interviewing witnesses, locating evidence, identifying suspects, interview of suspects, and preparing the case for court prosecution. Typically, there are around 3 detectives working at a time at B District. So detectives have a really, really important job. The way that we're structured, there's almost 2 branches. We've got the administrative branch, which you can go up, which goes lieutenant, captain, chief, commissioners, everything else. And you've got detectives. They're kind of a separate branch. They fall under those branches, but they have their own section. So it's detective and detective sergeant. So whenever a report is made, that report goes to the detectives. The detectives review the reports and they assign a detective to it if there's solvability. Does anyone know what solvability is? Any idea? I know Debbie knows. I know Debbie, don't you even raise your hand. All right, so solvability is essentially things that you have that could lead to the closure of a case, things that you have that of evidentiary value. It could be witnesses, it could be fingerprints, it could be something left behind by a suspect, like a piece of clothing or something, or DNA. All those things lead to solvability. It just increases the chances that we have of solving that particular case. So a detective reviews every single report and checks for solvability. And if there's solvability there, and if there's an actual complainant who's willing to cooperate with him, he moves forward with that investigation and starts his investigation. Man, you got anything on that?
No, you covered all that part.
All right,
Appreciate it.
let's see. All right, so I don't know if you can see this picture, but it's one of our detectives. Actually, he's a detective sergeant now. His name is Nick Militello, and he's a very, very sharp guy. He's very intense. He's very serious about this stuff. Like he's all over every single call that comes out in the district. It's really honestly really impressive. He's very good. But that's a picture of him just walking through the crime scene, walking through an investigation. But he's a very good detective and now a great detective sergeant. All right. So what if I made a crime report and haven't heard anything? So I hear this all the time. Someone's like, I made a report and no one ever got back to me and it never got investigated, but it goes back to so many different things. And one of those things is solvability, among other things. So there can be a number of possible reasons. Dispositions. Sometimes we wind up having to place a disposition in a call based on the fact of the call. Maybe we weren't able to get cooperation from the actual person who called initially. Maybe they gave us the wrong phone number. Maybe their phone stopped working. Maybe they moved over to another house and now we can't get a hold of them and we sent notices out. In some situations, it's because just because of the fact that there's no solvability. Sometimes the person didn't put the person's description, the person's name, or anything that would lead us to be able to solve that crime. And so it might be a while till you actually get a call back in situations like that because it might lack solvability. The other reason is just the detectives deal with high volume. I mean, if you think about it, as I said, usually you have probably around tops, maybe 3 detectives working in the district. Would you say the same thing, right?
Yep.
So 3 detectives, and every single time an officer goes on a call, that report's going back to that same group of people that day. I want to really reiterate that because I hear some complaints about those things, and people are like, well, they didn't get back to me. It's like, that detective often handles so many cases, and each of those cases requires a lot of time and effort. I can tell you, I used to be a detective in Delta District before I became a lieutenant, and it was honestly a very stressful job because the caseload and case volume is very, very high. So each case, I remember some people would call me out to investigate, I mean, things like mere shoplifting at a store. And so just something like that, just sitting and reviewing video footage takes you almost your entire shift for something that's as little as a misdemeanor. So imagine a case that has a lot of moving parts that's a bit more serious with more of an egregious offense. You're going to have to take a lot of time on that case. So during that time that you're working it, if I'm reviewing camera footage, I can't make all the phone calls I need to make to call every single person that's filed a report that day. So they have incredibly high caseload and high volume. So they try to prioritize it based on the extremity of the situation, based on how serious or prioritize it based on the actual offense that was committed. Got anything on that?
No.
All right. So
If a report was made and you are the complainant, you can always call the district station house and ask to speak to a detective regarding the status of your investigation using your name and the issue CD number, which is assigned to the report. So if you were to make a report and you haven't heard from a detective, we always recommend calling the station house. We have little cards that we typically give out, and it has a CD number, which is number to reference the actual report, and also the number to the station house. We always recommend that people call that number and talk to a detective and ask for the status of their investigation, and that way they can find out what the status of that particular case is. You can also go to the station house with this information and a valid picture identification and receive a copy of the report. So to get a copy of the report, it's pretty simple in our department. You just literally show up with your actual ID and just ask for a copy of your report. It's that simple. As long as you're not the suspect in that particular case and you're named in that case, you can get a copy of that report. However, obviously, if you're a suspect, you cannot get a copy. And we believe it or not, we get that a lot, unfortunately. Suspects or unlisted persons cannot receive a copy of the report from the district staff. This is a picture of Mark Constantino. He's a longtime specialized detective. He works in our sexual offense unit. So we have Buffalo Police Specialty Unit detectives. So each particular incident is unique. Our station house detectives handle certain incidents, but then there's other situations that they don't handle. We have specific detectives that handle those situations. And I'm going to pull up a little bit of that. So what is a specialized investigative unit? There are some crimes which are investigated by specially trained group of detectives who are specific to a certain type of crime. When these reports are taken, which are specific to their field, once it's received, the district detective forwards the report to the specialty unit to be assigned by them. Buffalo Police has multiple detective specialty units such as Homicide Unit, Sexual Victims Unit, Intel Unit, Narcotics Unit, Threat Management Unit, and others, in addition to detectives who handle phone and computer-based crimes. These detectives are generally based out of Buffalo Police Headquarters at 68 Court Street. So this is done for a reason. It obviously lightens the caseload for detectives at the actual districts, and also ensures that people who are trained and specialized in that particular area are the ones doing the investigation for those high priority situations. So this will mean your shootings, this will mean your homicides, unfortunately, sexual crimes and things of sensitive nature. They're all going to be handled by detectives who are actually trained and specialized, particularly in that particular area, because the prosecution for those things are very sensitive. It's tough sometimes to really take those things to court, and so many different legal things are necessary to have in place, and we want to make sure that people who are used to doing that and experienced in doing that are the ones who are handling those particular cases, and that's why that is done that way. Community police officers. So this is something up Manny's area of expertise. So you want to handle that? And here's a picture of Mrs. Paness Mitchell hanging out with a lot of the kids from our community, who is soon to be a detective, which I'm so proud of her for. Obviously, community policing is very near and dear to my heart, and it always will be. It's something that I encourage all of our officers to take part in the district. And it's just so important to build those relationships and to make sure that we have constant dialogue and we have communication with our community members to make sure that we're not separate from them and that we're instead working together for the betterment of our community together. But I'll let Manny take from there, and there's some information up there if you want to read it.
Yeah, so basically community policing, to be brief, so it's myself and my partner Pitts, who's obviously on the opposite wheel. But basically you have patrol officers who go from call to call, and they kind of are very busy because the city is so massive and there's always something going on. But so basically what I do is I take the time for if there's a neighbor trouble and officers and frequent calls of service for that location, and officers are kind of like, hey, we don't know what to do about this. The neighbors are constantly having trouble. They're having issues. That's when I kind of like I take the time to speak with, like I'll have like a small meeting with the landlord and the resident, or even with property management, anything like that. It takes time. So this is like what I do, because patrol officers go call to call to call, so they don't really take the time to look into the situation and how to resolve it, and how to, because that's not what they do. So that's where it falls with community policing, and I try to get more engaged in depth with trying to give people the resources and the help that they need, and try to guide them in the right direction as far as that goes. and I work a lot alongside Mr. Cardwell and city inspectors, um, and with the licensing department through City Hall, and things like that. I just wanted to keep it brief. I don't know.
But we can go off the screen too, and I'll read a couple of those things.
Yeah.
So what exactly is community policing? It's a strategy of policing which focuses on developing relationships with members of the community. These relationships help involved parties resolve community issues, increase communication, dialogue, trust, cooperation, and ultimately improves public safety and well-being. It focuses on quality of life issues, resource and service linkage, engagement, and outreach. It also addresses housing issues, permit and license issues, 311 complaints, and crime prevention. So, as part of community policing in our district, as long as many of our other districts through Buffalo Police Department, we actually do a lot of engagement, a lot of outreach because it's very important to us. It's important to our mayor, obviously. It's important to our commissioner, and it's very important to us as a police department. So some of the things that we do as a district, currently B District has 2 community police officers who work opposite schedules from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. B District has Chiefs community meetings, which take place monthly. Our district uniquely has community meetings in each of our neighborhoods and not just at the actual district itself. This was done especially because we wanted to make sure we were out there talking to citizens directly about their issues, but also so that we were seeing their issues. And so the group who attends our meetings were able to go and visit different parts of the city and understand what those community members were dealing with, and so that we could see it firsthand. The meetings are attended by the chief, myself, the CPO, like Manny, the assistant district attorney, community members, and other community stakeholders typically. Several community efforts and clothing drives are hosted throughout the year by us. B District assists on holiday efforts to donate toys and goods to needy families. We've actually been collecting the names of families who we know are going through tough times or are victims of crime, and we're going to go back and we're going to make sure that they're taken care of throughout the holidays. And that's something that we quietly do throughout our district, and it's something that we take great pride in. We host a yearly community day event for community members. Obviously, Debbie can tell you all about those. All of our districts take great pride in doing those. It almost becomes a little competitive sometimes. It's kind of funny. Officers also take part in BPD efforts and strategies such as custom notifications and directed patrols. B District produces the highest volume of directed patrols due to the amount of attractions and the size of our district and the dedication of our officers. I'm going to pat myself on the back and our officers on the back a lot on that one because we produce a lot of directed patrols, and it's something that really helps to keep citizens safe. I don't know if you guys know what directed patrols are, but I'll explain it for those who don't know. So in policing, we've advanced a bit. Back in the day, like the patrols were pretty much innate. They were just things that the officers did based on their own instincts of that particular district. So now we've figured out that we can quantify crime. We can figure out where crimes are happening at the most locations. We can literally look at the data and decide where the patrols are most needed in particular areas. We determine hotspot locations and we determine complaint locations where these things are happening, and we direct our patrol officers to go to those locations throughout this shift when they're not tied to 911 calls or events. So we try to get them there at the same locations, but also at the times that those crimes have been happening. This causes a shift in that crime. If it doesn't stop the crime, it actually shifts it from that particular area so that we can further address it and we can relieve that particular area of the problem. But soon we're going to be adding another ripple to that strategy as we're going to start being even more proactive and recognizing where the possible areas are that crime could shift. And we're going to be going to proactively address that and try to link them with resources and also make recommendations through via SUPTED and through the officer's knowledge and connections with other city departments to take care of some of the issues of some of the at-risk areas that we consider in those direct patrol hotspots so that the crime can't shift to that location. So we're limiting them from being able to go to another location right after. This is a quick little picture of one of the kids enjoying his time on a ski-doo at our police community day. And this is one thing that I want to talk about as well. It's one thing that obviously I feel like sometimes people don't want to have this conversation, but complaints. What do I do if I have a complaint about an officer or about police services? So the working supervisor can be requested at the district front desk or call to the station using from the station house number. Internal Affairs Division is responsible for ensuring that all complaints are dealt with fairly, effectively, and in accordance with department policies and procedures. It is the policy of the Buffalo Police Department to thoroughly investigate all complaints from whatever sources derived and to investigate all allegations of misconduct or infractions of department standards of conduct. Each such investigation shall result in appropriate dispositions. Citizen complaints concerning department employees will be accepted at all police facilities in which sworn members are assigned, regardless of whether that employee is subject to the complaint is assigned to that facility. It's the responsibility of every supervisor / superior officer to personally accept citizens' complaints concerning employees of the department. In those circumstances in which a supervisor or superior officer is away from the building or office, they shall be requested to return immediately. So I want to make sure I point that out because one of the things I hear at some meetings, people say, well, I saw an officer do this and I didn't like it. And I'm like, well, did you tell anyone? And the answer more often than not is no. And I understand that, there might be some deep issues as to why. I get what we do is intimidating to a certain extent. Some people don't feel comfortable walking into a government building, let alone a police station, right? I get it. These uniforms, the guns on our hips, the things they've seen in social media, people get afraid to have that dialogue alone with a police officer, let alone an actual supervisor of police. But however, I would also say that, at being a chief, especially if there's ever an issue out there, if you ever see something that you don't like that a police officer is doing, I would urge anyone to go to a police station, just ask to speak to a supervisor and make a complaint regarding it, or just talk to a supervisor about it so that he can address it. Right? All right. And so for emergencies, always dial 911. We like to urge people. Still to this day, I get people who have worked with us regularly and they still do things like they'll email me or something after the fact. And I'm like, guys, crime is over now. Like, like we're already behind the 8 ball. You've severely limited our possibility of actually resolving whatever the issue is, because now there's no chance of us responding and getting whatever evidence was there. And sometimes even things like camera footage. Some people have camera systems that completely automatically erase after a day or two. And so if you tell us after the fact, then the investigation is going to be severely limited. So I just want to make sure people know that the best thing to do is to always call 911. B District Station
And,
House
and,
number.
and Chief, can I just underscore that a little bit? And I know data is so important. It leads to innovation. It leads to being smart about what you're doing. I think accessibility is great. I mean, folks can, we make ourselves available, but having and when you call 911, then they can list whatever you're calling about, and so that when you are working with your officers, the lieutenant on duty or whomever, you it's kind of like that directed patrol, right?
Right.
Having data is very, very important. So I think we just want to encourage people to call, and even there's protocols if you have an issue with dialing 911. People think that's the city, that's actually the county. The county
Right.
calls for aid. The city has and I'll let you explain that. The city is the person that is doing the dispatching, too. But just wanted to spend some time and just like why it's so important, to use the 911 system too. And I also know you're going to probably talk a little bit about the difference between 911 and 311. Obviously, when you see it, it's happening right there. It's 311. I mean, it's 911. But if it's something that's chronic, you want to maybe talk about big picture. That's what you want to be able to do. Okay.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point. And even just like I was saying, we were doing everything on the basis of data. If you don't make the 911 call, we don't have that data. So it's important for us to make sure that we have an accurate assessment of what's going on in each one of the neighborhoods so that they could be efficiently policed based on whatever is happening there. And so if we're not getting the 911 calls, it's difficult for us to do that. And just as I said, a lot of people, I remember during I think during the debates we talked about this yesterday. I remember someone was running for a position and they said Buffalo police should really be ashamed of what's happening in the holding center. And I'm like, wait, we're not the same. That's Erie County Sheriffs. We're a different department. So I think a lot of people lack the understanding of the fact that we're not one large entity. We're all separate entities. Yes, we all work together in certain ways and we try to coordinate as best we can, but we're all completely separate entities. And 911 dispatch is completely run by the county. That's over in the county building. And we just work with them. The call is generated
It actually goes from the call taker to the actual dispatcher, and then it goes to the police department. So I've even had people say, well, you guys didn't respond, and I called at this time, because they immediately didn't know that there were two people. There were two entities that were in the way of their call and us. So before it even got to us, sometimes it sits on the board before it's even dispatched by the actual dispatcher. So the call taker sends it over to the dispatcher. Dispatcher then sends it over to us. So sometimes some of those complaints, unfortunately, they were misdirected. And also the difference between 311, 311 is Division of Citizen Services. Those guys do a wonderful job. Manny works with 311 quite frequently, as does Justin Pitts, because it handles essentially any quality of life issue throughout the city of Buffalo, basically sends it to the appropriate office or the appropriate department so that they can address whatever that citizen issue is. Whereas 911 should be primarily for those emergency calls, those things that require immediate action. So I've even had people put things that were pretty emergency related in a 311 call and vice versa, right? But I think it's important to know how to utilize both. If something requires immediate response, then 911 is also always going to be your number. And I don't want to further complicate it, but there's also a tip line but, which is 847-2255. That should be utilized if you just have some information about something going on that might be criminal. It's just a little tip you want to put in our ear. If you're scared to go on record, that's a thing that you can use. You can call or text that number as well.
Chief Champion, I know we only have a few more minutes, but there are some questions here that people have, and then I'm gonna tell Debbie that you ate into her time, but she'll forgive you. Or you'll forgive. You know.
Keep going, Tommy. Keep going. You're good. You're good.
Well, here it says, I think Arlene Short, she says, have you seen an increase in certain crimes or marked a decrease in offensive in any areas of the cities? Kind of like, what are some of the trends? Have you seen more of certain crimes and less of things? Or a market decrease in offensive?
That's actually a great question, because we, as a chief, that's something that I have to keep track of. Every single day I track all the stats and data in my district. I'm probably a little excessive about it, to be quite honest. Manny will probably tell you that.
Yeah, he is.
but you have to be. I feel like you have to be. But
Yeah.
for example, I know that, right now, I know school issues are a big thing. Last year, we had more issues with the school students who are teenagers when they were letting out of school. We got together with many of the stakeholders, including BPS. We tried to add additional police manpower down there. I know the peacemakers were helping out down there. There were a lot of fights and little things happening in the downtown area, but the kids weren't actually from downtown. They were just kids from other schools who were meeting up at the locations in our downtown area just to do what they were doing. And unfortunately, there were some criminal acts, mischievous stuff, but a lot of it was pretty dangerous. There were some fights and things that were happening as a result of that. So we got a really big uptick down there as a result of all the large groups of kids doing those things. There were even some people thrown through some of the storefront windows, unfortunately, because of some of the kids. And these are teenagers. And mind you, legislation like Raise the Age, it's well intentioned and effective in some ways, but in other ways, it's obviously had some negative impacts on it, because, obviously it makes it more difficult to address those situations. And we don't always have, the amount of efficiency, I guess, in, the courts sometimes to be able to address the overflow of kids that are having issues through family court. So that's been an issue. We do get a lot of larcenies in our district. Larcenies are a big thing in the business districts, but the majority of our larcenies aren't larcenies that happen out in the city streets. They actually happen inside the actual business locations, such as shoplifting. So that's happened a lot. I think some of the construction sites, are always a prime target for criminals, because they know that there's expensive equipment right there in this area that are oftentimes not secured. So that's something that we've been seeing. And also the one sector of our district, which is like the Hampshire area, Massachusetts Ave area, that's been seeing a bit of an uptick in activity, as there's a young gang called KBB, which is a large gang that's been forming, and they've been increasing in numbers. A lot of the people, believe it or not, are international kids. And a lot of the kids are coming over because they seek refuge in these gangs. They feel like they're safer and more confident, and they've been getting involved in some activity over there in that area.
Great. Tommy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so a couple of things. Let me see, another question. Amy, and this is probably more directed to us. She loves to see a training session and using data. Buffalo, she started doing a little bit. Amy, we do have an open data coordinator. That position is vacant. We're going to put you in contact with Kirk McLean. He's the city's chief innovation officers. We do a lot of community engagement. We've done the data academy. I'm going to tell everyone to stay close. We're going to probably be doing another Citizens Academy very soon. So we're trying to put that's a lot of kind of compliments saying thank you to you, what you do. I know you mentioned, we talked about the district. You mentioned about Lieutenant McAllister, who's doing a great job talking about community policing. We're going to have him come on at another time, and he's going to be speaking more about the role that he plays. And those are some of the specialized units in terms of what overall and what we do with the city of Buffalo. So I can't say enough. Thank you, Tommy. Chief, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Officer Montez, and I think you just gave a very thorough overview of what's happening in police. I think transparency is very important. I think nothing should be a secret if people know who diligent resident in terms of how they participate, within city, not just government, but how they participate, shopping, worshiping, entertainment, and just enjoying their neighborhood. So I can't say enough and say thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. I left up on the screen Todd McAllister just to mess with him, mainly to make his picture really big. But his contact number is there as well, 851-6514, if everyone wants any community outreach help. I know he's really busy and really active, and he's always willing to engage.
Thank you so much, Chief Champion. We really appreciate you getting on. I know you have obviously a very busy schedule. And so it is 1 o'clock. We don't want to take up any more of anyone's time. We're going to quickly transition. Debbie, if you have any quick announcements you want to make.
No, we're good. Everybody knows about our event next week, so we're good. Thank you for responding. And we'll see you then. Nothing new and exciting as of right now, but stay tuned because that could change.
Okay, thank you. And then if anybody wants to, again, send any flyers or keep us updated with any events that they're having, of course, send them to the Buffalo Border Block Clubs, but also to the Division of Citizen Services. You can send them directly to me at nbrown@buffalo.gov, and either I will post them or I will send them out to our list of contacts. And then we want to give you guys back, we want to not take up any more of your time and let you guys enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you for joining us for this block chat, and we will forward out the next one that we will be having sometime in November. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Tommy.